Hey everyone, this video is going to be touching down on an issue, a topic that really has me as a libertarian conflicted. Although I must say, at this point, at this particular junction, knowing the kind of ideological opponents out there and those who represent the establishment, the political, the ruling class, how much they're vehemently against Ford choosing to use Section 33 of the Constitution, the Notwithstanding Clause. Let me just say first and foremost, folks, there's two things about this that actually kind of helps explain and expand upon the kind of things that I've been talking about for years. First of all, if your Constitution or your Bill of Rights can be overridden with a special clause written right inside of it that says it can be denied. So your rights can be denied. Your Charter of Rights and Freedoms and some of the very core tenets of the Constitution can be completely overridden just by a politician invoking the Notwithstanding Clause. That tells you that your pretense, the very concept of freedoms, it's all based on bullshit. It's all based on lies. It's a false premise to begin with. But once again, as a libertarian, we all understand this, or well, people that understand the philosophy of liberty and what it means to be a free human being understands that, you know, having government, which is a representation of a monopoly of force or violence in any geographical landmass, it's just a defined term, folks. It's just the definition. Other people might try to use political speak or political language or legalese to try to get around that reality. But the truth of the matter is, governments, you know, those who represent government are supposedly people that don't have to follow the same kind of rules that you or I have to, where you can't use violence, force, compulsion as a means to an end, or theft as a means to an end. Government, this mystical institution that we've been told that they're all just representatives of us, but yet how can they be a representative or a voice of the people when they do things that aren't even aligned with what the people can do? So once again, I can't impose my wills, my edicts. You know, I can't forcefully take from other people their income or their productive wealth and give to someone else. That's called theft. The only people that have that capacity are people that call themselves politicians and who supposedly represent you as your ruler or as your representative. Once again, it's all just words. It's all just rhetoric. It's all just meant to appease the people and give them some false sense of security or some pretense that these people represent you. No, they rule over you. And Doug Ford, even though that's the thing, some people like certain kinds of rulers, right? Certain people like certain kind of dictators, especially if their ideology or their philosophy happens to align with them. Now, in this particular area, when Doug Ford is using the Notwithstanding Clause to shrink the size and scope of government in Toronto, once again, there's where my conflict arises, because first of all, I don't believe in all this crap, this big government bull crap to begin with, right? And I don't believe in having central planners as my authority. A moral authority is something that's universal and objectively proven and logically consistent. Human beings are all fallible. We're all fallible human beings, every one of us. So to give any human being or any group of human beings the pretense of being able to rule over everyone else in any given society, that's the wrong way to go. But democracy, yeah, that might have worked, you know, might have been better than, you know, some of the dictators or monarchies in the old or of the past. But we live in 2018, folks. We shouldn't be living like this anymore. We should all be living as adults and realize that, no, we don't need mystical rulers of any kind. We just need proper rules, morals, and ethics that everybody has to abide by. And how do we hold each other accountable? Not through the political class, which, as we've seen, they just pick winners or losers. They don't represent everyone. No, universal rules means that everybody gets to hold each other to account and actually opt in and opt out of any social or economic endeavors. Having the option to participate or not participate is what freedom is all about. Anyways, let me just, yeah, but that's truth. That's just reality, folks. And this is something, like I say, I love explaining this stuff because it's something that people need to understand because it's very important. But anyways, I'm just going to point out the reality, and this is something that Kelly McParland is pointing out, and I actually agree that the Canadian people, as much as the media and the political and the pundit class are trying to tell, you know, use their propaganda, use their bully platform to try to tell people, oh, it's a terrible thing, oh, Doug Ford's now a dictator. You know what? Like I say, these are people that are actually going to You know, especially the political class. Look at the politicians. Look at the councillors. Those are the ones that seem to be representing the biggest voice out there that's in opposition to Ford using the Notwithstanding Clause. Why? Because, yeah, these people feel so self-entitled to the Canadian taxpayers' money that they will stand up. They will use activist judges, as we've seen, right? Because that's another thing. A judge is just a fallible human being, too. Why is it that they try to point towards Doug? Oh, Doug's bad for using the Notwithstanding Clause. But this judge that basically denied, you know, Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, his ability to be able to implement his kind of legislation. This judge tried to overrule the legislature and those people who were, you know, voted in by the people. So, like I say, activist judges, and once again, it's all about perspective. You know, what side of the political aisle you might sit upon, whether you're going to agree with this or whether you're going to disagree with it. Or even if you're just apolitical and like, wait a minute, I don't know if this is good, I don't know if it's bad. Once again, I can't say one way or the other because my objective brain, the logic and consistency, the moral and ethical stance I should take is, first of all, well, we got to go back once again, like I say, before even this whole thing comes to rise. But the fact that you have a constitution that suggests that politicians, whether they're premiers or even the federal government, can override and deny your rights, which is, well, how do you think they implement things such as conscription to send you to war, to kill people, to kill strangers that they say you have to? Yeah, by overruling, by using such things as the Section 33. So they keep it in their back pocket as a means, right? But what it is the lefties, the people that have been dominating the political culture and the political environment in Canada, they haven't had to use it because everything's been going their way for the most part, right? People like Doug Ford, people that are actually standing up in opposition to establishment, to the established ruling class, unfortunately they don't have the deep state on their side. So they have to use, you know, blunt tools and instruments such as this kind of a clause. Once again, not saying it's good, not saying it's bad. Well, kind of a little bit of both, but in this particular situation, I, like a lot of Canadians, am glad that Doug Ford used it. And no, it's not that I've sold out my morals or principles. It's just that I recognize that I have to live in the real world. I can pretend that we can live in some kind of utopian world where everything's done properly, right? But that's not the world we function under. Not yet, anyways. Anyways, headline out of the National Post. Kelly McParlin. Ford says legislatures must prevail, and the public will agree. The hysteria unleashed by Ontario's plan to use the Notwithstanding Clause is wildly overwrought. It's probably worth noting right off the top that I've never considered it a big deal that Canada has a constitution. Maybe that's because I grew up in Canada before it had one. A peaceful, prosperous country of good-natured strivers, big on tolerance and open to diversity. The Constitution didn't invent that or make it better, right? Culture. Yeah, culture. Politics is way downstream of culture, as Kelly is acknowledging here in this article. It merely reduced to words the beliefs, principles, ambitions, and outlook Canadians had already developed. In doing so, it arguably took the nurturing, protection, expansion, and oversight of those principles away from the people among whom they developed, and shifted it to lawyers and judges keen on interpreting wording and nuance in accordance with their own concepts of what was intended. Right, so based on their own ideological preferences. And once again, Kelly, you're right on the mark there. Lots of countries have constitutions. Article 1 of the Constitution of the Russian Federation identifies Russia as a democratic, federal, law-bound state. Article 2 notes that man has rights and freedoms are the supreme value, the recognition, observance, and protection of which shall be the obligation of the state, which at the moment means whatever Vladimir Putin says it means. Venezuela, currently in full meltdown from a combination of lawlessness, corruption, and crime, also has a constitution. It's 26. And hey, North Korea, a lot of these dictatorial countries have constitutions. So once again, words written on paper does not determine and dictate your level of freedoms or liberty in your country. No, it's what's in the people's minds, what they represent, the values they hold dear, the principles they hold dear, and how willing they are to stand up and defend them. That's what matters, folks. That's what matters most. And like I said, once you get into the weeds of politics, oh, you're going to find people coming from all different areas and want to bicker and fight. But what we should be doing is removing or shrinking the role of governments and politics in our life to the point where a lot of this stuff doesn't matter. We just live under the rules-based kind of society that is conducive to actual human prosperity, liberty, and freedom, both socially and economically. Universal rules and ethics, folks. That's all you need. No rulers, no top-down authoritarianism, just people's willingness to hold each other to account. That's basically it. It's pretty simple concept, I know, but that is just the reality. Just like in your household, just like in a family setting or in a community, the kind of freedoms, the kind of culture you create is going to be completely reliant and dependent on the people and how willing they are to have that live, let live mentality as far as most things, but stand firm on their conviction in regard to principles and what it means to be a free human being. In other words, libertarianism, the non-aggression principle, and self-ownership and private property. That I own myself and everything I produce, and no other human being has any higher claim of authority on that stuff. Or even in the social sphere. If you want to do something, socially, all right, you want to be gay, you want to do whatever you want, as long as you're not causing harm to someone else, I have no right to tell you you can't do what you want to do. And, once again, last but not least, for a crime to be a crime, under proper common law, it means there has to be a victim involved. If there's no victim involved, there has not been any crime. Skinny Libertarian, and I love liberty.